Hello everybody, it's Friday night and it is time for the Weekender once again. We have another packed show of miniature wargaming goodness from across the hobby industry, and this week we've a big focus on World War II as we check out 15mm, 28s and an RPG. On top of that, we also have a £50 gift voucher from Wayland Games for one lucky subscriber to the channel. If you pop a comment below the video here on the YouTubes, you may be in with a chance to win. Now sit back, relax, because your weekend starts here. Hello everybody and welcome to the Weekender. I'm joined this week by John and Ben.
Hello
boys.
Hey.
Post salute with the post salute clarity that you get. We can see all of the new gaming news that's come out.
Yes.
That's what they call it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've not been on your screens properly for a fortnight. So before we kick into the show, just a couple of wee things, just to salt the pot, so to speak. If you didn't make it to Salute, there are a couple of videos where we go around and torment people as they desperately try to put their game on for somewhere between 7,000 and 10,000 people, whatever they had through the door at Salute.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Obviously, they appreciated us just barreling in there and going, you know what? You should really be talking to us instead. Ignore the paying punters. Come and see us. So there's a gentle 2-hour-long meander through Salute, which I think accounts for about a quarter of the tables.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yes. I know some people did ask, what about the traders? And as I said, I don't care about the traders.
You can see that in the news.
Yeah. If people want to see that, Bing is a thing. You can go and Bing the Perrys or Nedra or whatever, and they will show you what they've got coming out. But considering everybody had announced what they were bringing to Salute in advance, there was nothing different, exciting, or new that we weren't going to see. So, yeah, I go for the games, and you should too. On top of that, I've done a whole host of interviews recently. So there's been some interesting ones. Talked to Graham Davey about Guards of Traitors Toll, or GOT, as I've decided it is from now on. That was fun. But at the end as well about some of his other games, so Test of Honor and Zero 200, seeing what's going on with that. The delightful Mr. Hutchins. Space Gits, which is currently rocking about somewhere, but also the other Planet Smasher game stuff, so announcements about A Billion Suns and other things of that ilk. And also a lovely interview with Mr. James Morris regarding Midgard Heroic Battles, which was a joy. And I think I've managed to tempt him over to Nirn to play some games, hopefully later on this year on camera. Keep your eye out. There's at least one more coming in the not too distant. I've managed to wrangle a Charlie, like the Fly the Navigator. He's trapped in a silver bubble. So I'll be coming as well, so we'll find out what War Games Atlantic are up to. Also,
Charlie, my beloved.
I just laid a little trail of tiny tanks until Charlie followed. Yep. Piece of Sherman. Piece of Sherman. Anyway, so yeah, there's a ton of stuff on the site, even though we weren't here, so hopefully people have caught up on those, and if you've missed any of them, you've got time. We're not taking them away. They're not going away. They're just there. You can watch them whenever you want. Watch them in the bath. I don't know if people still have baths. It's all hydro showers these days where you get blasted by salt. Anyway.
I'm wondering what kind of dystopian nightmare Antrim has become.
Oh, it's not good. I read a new game from Tangent Miniatures over the weekend, and it's very, very similar to Antrim. But we'll find out more about that whenever I get a chance to talk to Wayne Boolans about it. Anyway, I think it's time for some news.
Coming to you from the center of northwestern Europe. covering board games, war games, card games, and all that you love. It's the news.
Okay, we're going to kick the news off this week with something that was playing out across Salute, and that is the second edition of the Baron's War.
Yeah. So the new edition box set for that is now available for you to, pick up and dive into from the folks at War Games Atlantic. You can go on over and get your hands on that one. We've kind of given a little bit of an overview of what they're doing with this a couple of weeks ago, but the Baron's War second edition, it's a kind of a tightening or a tweaking of the rules from the first edition, alongside a bunch of the people who play the game fairly religiously within their community. But Andy, as he's now part of War Games Atlantic anyway, is their sort of like creative director, I think.
Creative director.
Yeah.
There's Charlie. That's what a Charlie looks like.
My beloved. Yeah. And so they're now working together to create a sort of starter box, essentially, for you to dive into, start playing games of the Baron's War on the tabletop. So it's a medieval skirmish game where you'll take on the role of, as you might have imagined, the barons, leading their various cohorts across England and Wales and Scotland, maybe as well, if you wanted to, fighting it out for land and all sorts of other things, usually for land and money and power. The set comes with 54 plastic miniatures that already exist within the War Games Atlantic collection. So if you already, if you've already got a bunch of those sitting around, you could always use those to build up your forces and just get your hands on the book. But the sort of breakdown is 12-foot knights, 18-foot sergeants, and then 24 peasant levy as well in there. You can see the peasants looking revolting. And all of them are modular, so you can sort of customize them and kit bash them however you like as well. So as it tends to be from War Games Atlantic, it's the bodies and legs together, and then you can sort of bash the arms on the heads and however you like and play around with those as you see fit. They also recently released their mounted knights and sergeants as well. So you'll be able to get the pre-order. You can get those as well at the same time if you wanted to level things up. I do believe there's like an all-in bundle thing where you can get the core box and those 2 boxes of knights, and knights and sergeants, so you can play around with everything all together if you'd like.
Remember, all knights are sergeants, but not all sergeants are knights.
That's very true. Yes, the medieval code. You'll get everything else you need to play the game in the box set as well. So you'll get your dice, you'll get your tokens, you also get the rule book at the same time. There's also like a quick start guide they're doing in the set. I'll get to that in a second, Jerry.
Please.
There's also a quick start guide. So if you've never played Baron's War before, there's like a booklet that will sort of guide you through the process of learning the mechanics and giving it a go, just like Charlie's doing there in that picture.
Yes.
But as Jerry was pointing out, there's also a really nice little plastic terrain kit that they've done as part of this. So you can either use it to build barricades, as you see there, or you can actually build up proper market stalls if you prefer. So if you wanted to have a fight in the middle of a urban environment, you could do that. Or maybe you could have it so all the rogues and vagabonds have broken down the terrain and used it as barricades to try and stop the invading forces of an opposing baron from getting their way into the city. So yes,
naughty barons.
Cool. It's a really nice little system as well, the Baron's War. I read through the first edition one and also their Conquest version, which is the Dark Age one. It's really nice. D10 system for the most part. I think the majority of it is anyway. And as I say, it's a skirmish game. So if you're looking for a good entry point into the medieval era, Jerry, that doesn't require too many miniatures, Jerry, then it's a solid option for you to consider without feeling like you're going to have to build massive armies and all that kind of things as well. You'll also note that there was a video in there as well. So over on the War Games Atlantic YouTube channel, they've had Andy successfully, after a couple of takes, doing some breakdowns of how to play the game as well. So if you want to learn a little bit about the Baron's War and sort of how it works mechanics-wise and all that kind of thing, you can go and check those out.
Or just go to Leicester Fat Cats Gaming Club and then find Panzer Kaput from our community, who was one of the play testers for the second edition. I just go, Pete, teach us how to play this.
How it work, brah.
People happily break out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 forces of the Baron's War stuff and teach you how to play with no problems at all.
Yeah.
So, and he told me to say that. He said, you should definitely tell people to come to Leicester Fat Cats and then get me to teach them how to play the Baron's War. And I went, Pete, Are you sure? A lot of people will hear this. And he went, definitely, McCabe. Go for it. So that was very decent of him, I felt.
Oh, dear.
There's also exciting and new news as far as spiffing your miniatures up as well.
Oh, yes. There is also additional details.
Have I derailed you, Benjamin?
Yes, you did, slightly. So in addition to the plastic models, obviously one of the things that you'll want to do when it comes to beautifying your forces is work on those wonderful shields, which all have various heraldry and stuff on them. And because Wargames Atlantic know that you probably don't want to have to faff around with freehanding, because why would anyone do that? You can instead just get a bunch of their transfers that you just slip onto the shields, and away you go. You get a bunch of designs that are based on historical figures, but also some that are like entirely new and just been designed for the sake of the game as well. And there's also damaged versions as well that they've added in. So if you want to add some more grizzled veterans into the mix,
William Marshall at the start of the game, William Marshall at the end of the game.
You can even switch the shields out if you so desire.
Oh, magnetize all your shields.
Magnetize all your shields. It's a Lloyd thing.
I'm going for the St. Ivel gold look myself.
It looks very, yeah.
My favorite of the spreadable banners.
Yes. So yeah, they're going to be really, really handy, again, especially for people who are diving in for the first time to play medieval war games. They've also going to be working on a bunch of additional transfers as well. So this was the other one that they teased, or the other set that they teased anyway. So they already do a set of late Roman soldiers, infantry, for use in whatever game you're playing, probably Saga. And so you can get your hands on these, and obviously this allows you to fill out those shields without, again, having to do all the needlessly fiddly work of freehanding designs.
Which mean you don't want to freehand 1 million pigeons on your shields.
Yes. There's only so many pigeons you can take. So.
I wonder who's printing these for them. I know there was a company in America whose name has escaped me. Sorry. But when Wargames Atlantic released their initial stuff, their Dark Age, Irish and the like, they did shield decals that were compatible with. They fit the Wargames Atlantic stuff. I wonder if Hudson's reached out to do that, or if there's somebody different and new doing it. Time will tell, I suppose. I'll know
the artwork is by Steve Beckett. There you go. So that's who's done the designs.
Doesn't help me.
So there you go.
Doesn't help me with who's producing them. But I will find out.
It in-house, to be honest.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It is possible. Anyway, yeah. Lovely stuff. If you fancy doing medieval period. Come here.
Lloyd will drag you into it. It's going to happen. So, yeah.
Oh, damn it. You survived today, Ben. Right. Away from the Barons War pre-order and taking a look then at some news from Victrix, which is exciting.
You weren't going to hand it over to you. You're just like, it's exciting.
Just exciting.
Well, it is, yes, because it's 28mm, which means we can stop listening to Lloyd complaining about small scale stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
So this is their 28mm German infantry and heavy weapons set. 44 miniatures in this pack, which is superb. So we're getting a full platoon of German infantry along with their support weapons. We also have radio operators, medics, ammo carriers, officers, snipers. So there's tons of options in here, and there is a gigantic list of things you can make with this, which is horrendously long. So can I see? So heavy weapons included is 81mm mortar, a tripod-mounted MG42, a Panzerschreck, and multiple Panzerfaust options. So they're all over the place. You can see on the sprue there. Part of the tripod MG42 and one of the Panzerfaust. Probably a Panzerfaust 60? No, it's a bit small for a 60. Never mind. No, I'm not going to start down the what size of Panzerfaust is that trail, because no, the flavors are many and not all vanilla.
It's probably for the best. I like what they've done with this. This is an extension of some of the Dark Age releases where you would get a couple of sprues of a command and then a lot of rank and file sprues. In a similar way, this pack is going to be, I don't know how many of the heavy weapons sprues there are. I want to say it might be 2 or 3. And then you've got your main rifle sprue. So
I kind of wanted to say, it says on their website, so it's a full infantry platoon of 30 men, plus 14 heavy weapons and support figures. So whatever's on that support sprue needs to make up the other 14.
Yeah. Because you've got, and there's a nice mix of prone, kneeling, and standing figures as well.
Mm-hmm.
All rocking the smock. So these are on the later war/veteran style.
So you're looking at your Panzer Grenadiers and stuff like that, and I think you can probably do SS with these because the kit was more or less the same. It's just the
interesting
the smock or the Zelt band that they're wearing was just a different camouflage,
different print on it.
So long as the collar tabs are hidden and the tops of the arms on the tunics are hidden, you can get away with them being either SS or here. Well,
the tabs are out, but you can paint those on if you want to. Right. It's nice that these have come and unexpected as well in hard plastic, because they did test the waters with
some Brits.
Some British 28s in Seocast.
Yeah, they were 3. Well, yeah, they were Seocast, weren't they?
Yeah.
Single pieces.
So people looked at those at the time and it was like, interesting, not sure about the material. And then Victrix obviously gone, well, clearly people want us to do World War II.
Yep.
And the best way for us to do that is hard plastic and not mess around with the other. Maybe they'll revisit in the future for, I don't know, smaller packs or something. And by packs, I don't mean packs. I mean packets of miniatures, not the gun. Because they're probably not going to need as many or as high production run for some form of heavy weapons or things like that. So maybe they'll go that way, or maybe they've just gone, it's not worth the effort in the long run to go for Seocast. We'll just stick with the hards. But they're a beautiful sprue.
Yeah, it's a very nice sprue.
Which I will be seeing very, very soon.
No.
Oh,
you will? Oh,
yes, okay. I will, Joe.
I did when Ben earmarked this news for me to have a look at, I did go and do a little bit of price comparison. Because I thought it was only fair, because if, Victrix don't do a lot of 28mm, and this is a big, this is a big
set, yeah.
It's a big sprue for them for World War II. And I wanted to see how it was stacking up against what it would be its main competitor. So obviously bolt action stuff. And for 44 figures, it's £45 off Victrix. And I was like, that's okay.
Pound a figure, more or less.
Pound a figure, a pound for the packaging.
Yeah.
It roughly works out around the same value-wise as a Warlord box would. Because the Warlord box is 30.
Yeah.
Right.
But its retail is 37.
But where you're really making the savings is the support weapons.
Yep.
Because if you're lucky, you'll get light machine guns on a bolt action box, maybe an anti-tank rifle, and maybe a light mortar. Certainly don't see medium or heavies. They're always in metal or Warlord resin or whatever it happens to be. So
particularly if you're going for the if you're trying to make an infantry platoon for current bolt action, plus a heavy weapons platoon on top of that, you've got a lot more to work with in the Victrix pack. So,
yeah. And I mean, when they all come together, they do look absolutely superb.
Yeah.
Because it's a really, like I say, it's a full platoon, but just having that cohesive force. And I know some people don't like metal or resin, so being able to get your support weapons in there as well. The amount of times I've started a little bolt action force or Fight for Victory, and it's noticeable when there are different materials involved. So plastics and metals, even if they're made by the same sculptor, they do look just a little different on the tabletop, which I wouldn't say annoys me, but it's nice to have the consistency across the board, being able to go everything plastic off the go, command.
It's really nice. It's really nice to have a tripod MG42 that isn't metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because those are the biggest pain on the planet.
Yes.
For a World War II guy.
The thing that I always really like about the Victrix kits is the dynamism that they get out of the sculpts. Like, I think they talked about it in terms of options and stuff across the thing, and you can make every single one of the riflemen, because of the way they've built it, look different. So you wouldn't have a repeat, which I think is amazing. It does mean that you do have to keep an eye sometimes on their like body to arm list, where they say this one works with X, Y, and Z, or that kind of thing. But it's not that much of an issue, to be honest, in the grand scheme of things.
I will find out when they arrive. And the easiest way I found with Victrix when you're doing something like that is to go through every sprue.
So just do a whole sprue and then work on the next one. Or...
Oh, no. See, you've got go through every sprue and take off the same body off every sprue, and then take one sprue and take all of the arms that work for that body off one sprue, and then that way you know that you where you're going to hit the repeats.
I see.
So yes, I imagine with these most arms will be compatible across the board, because the only time they're not, where's my sprue picture?
Prone.
There's a sprue picture. Sometimes they'll have like an arm cut like that, cut at the t-shirt line, tunic, whatever it happens to be, and then you end up with a very specific arm because it's only coming halfway. All of these guys finish flush at the shoulders mostly. See this fella here, he's cut at the tunic line, but these are cut flush to the shoulder.
That layout kind of suggests that little rectangle of parts is for that body.
It does, doesn't it? And sometimes it is, and sometimes we play the Victrix bingo game.
I've built Anglo-Saxon, so I know this.
So, I mean, hopefully there'll be a fair amount of diversity in the build, so you'll be able to not worry about what arms are going with what, beyond the fact that you need a specific arm for a rifle or arm for an SMG or support weapon. But we'll find out. As soon as they land here, I'll be sticking them under camera like nobody's business, like Billy-O. And it'll be fascinating to see what they do next. Obviously, it's the Germans first. I think
they'll do US next, probably. So,
British company, they may go British next.
I mean, they did do the British as their test pieces, so they've got some stuff waiting in the wings for that.
Yeah.
So,
we know the renders are out there.
Yeah.
But cracking stuff. If you fancy a bit of the World War II in 28mm. But if you want to go smaller, happier, more productive, and off to a different theatre, there are a few things on the horizon for the upcoming Pacific War book for Flames of War. So they will be accompanied by a book that will contain all of your island hopping fun for fun and profit. But if you fancy just picking up the armies in advance of that, then, or for other games, to be fair, there's a few different versions coming out. So there's the Japanese Rifle Company, which, as you might imagine, consists of 2 Muhusiv swarm platoons coming your way, just to really add insult to injury. The Rifle Company contains 4 command teams. So you've got your command HQ and then your platoon commands, and then all of the guns, backed up by some of the worst tanks in military history. So if you really fancy it, the Type 89 Chiro, designed in the interwar period, so designed in the late 20s.
Oh, God.
based on the worst Vickers tank ever made. The Medium C, not to be confused with the Vickers Medium C, which was a different tank. They made one Medium C, not the Medium C, the Medium C. They made one of the Medium Cs. And it's not my fault that they named them both the same. And nobody wanted to buy it. And eventually Japan went, we'll have it. And then they went, oh, this is great. Let's make all the Chi road tags. And then they went, these are terrible. And retired them in 2.
The Japanese Navy went, could you stop stealing our stuff?
Yeah.
Stop stealing our metal, please.
Yeah, especially if all you're going to build is that. Yeah. Don't bother with that. And then the Chiha. Chiha. This is actually, because that's the original turret with the rolling antenna around it. Mm-hmm. They did upgun that in the end, so bigger turret, fit more crew and a bigger gun, because this went bing off Shermans when they seen Shermans. So I don't know if those are the old resins, or if they are new plastic. It's difficult to tell because
to me looks like the resin.
They do, but they've done this in the past where they've thrown some of the old photo of the old design stuff onto a box, and then you pay your money, take your chances.
The way to check really is it doesn't say all plastic anywhere.
Yeah, it doesn't say that on the box
because they usually tout all plastic as
correctamundo. In that case, there's going to be the resin metals from the old days, but a fairly comprehensive set of Japanese. If you're planning on, like I say, sort of 42, the Chiro was still kicking around after that, but they mostly used it for defense. So as things got further on, it got pushed further and further to the back lines.
Didn't they dig them in as well in some places? Probably Okinawa maybe had one or two knocking around.
Did they accidentally roll into a ditch and they went, oh no, we meant to do that?
I think the Chiro is the famous one from where on one of the islands they end up strapping a ton of explosives to the front of it and just rammed straight at an oncoming Sherman, because by that stage they were already on the back foot and they knew that they were about to get pasting and couldn't penetrate the Sherman.
I need to find that picture.
They only did it with one, to be fair. It's not like it was a constant.
We're not making those kind of tanks.
Yeah, but it was like last ditch defense as they got pushed off an island and just went ham at somebody. Speaking of, if you fancy playing the Americans, there's also going to be the US Marine Rifle Company. Again, full of all the joys of spring and all of the guns. This is an interesting one again. Contains the bazooka, which was only developed in 42. So
brand new.
That's brand spanking new on there. And then they realized it was terrible in the Pacific because a lot of the Japanese bunkers and the like weren't concrete. Against concrete bunkers, great. Okay. Yeah. Against Japanese tanks, well, I mean, you could just wet your finger and push your finger through a Japanese tank. It doesn't really matter. But
your M2 Browning, your 50 caliber could go through some of the Japanese armor.
But the soft sand sort of dug in positions, bazookas were terrible against them because they just sort of hit the sand and went in and went boop. There wasn't enough rigidity. Yeah. So they replaced them with flamethrowers.
It caught the rocket instead of detonating it.
Yeah. So this is an interesting one because you have both in there.
Flamethrowers for cleaning them out as well.
Yeah. And accompanied by some self-propelled guns and 4 Stuarts. Not the Honey, just a regular Stuart. Can't have everything.
It's the same thing.
It is. But it doesn't have the cute name.
No.
So yeah, plenty in both boxes if you fancy doing the island hopping. If you want to go into Burma and the likes, then there is the Far East British Rifle Company. So
this is the most interesting box for me.
Yes,
we've always seen the Japanese and the Americans, but you don't necessarily
often see the Commonwealth.
The Commonwealth stuff. Yeah, so,
carriers. Grants and 25-pounders. Oh my!
You're lovely, and that is a nice kit to build.
Yeah.
So yes, if you fancy doing some of the British Commonwealth forces in there, you can do your.
That's an interesting gun mount on that with the
side turret.
Yeah. Looks like an SPV from Captain Scarlet.
The Sponson. Yeah, the Sponson gun.
Yeah, the Sponson mount at the front was frisky, to say the least. It's also fairly heavily armoured. As far as that period and that tonnage of tank goes.
50 mil on the front of the Grant, I think. Maybe a bit less. But it's riveted.
Yes, it was indeed riveted and riveting. But a nice set of stuff from Battlefront for Flames of War if you're getting into the Pacific.
You get all the tokens and dice and everything to each set as well, which is good. So
it's nice when they do it. Although, as we've learned from Lloyd, his Desert Rat ones were baked to bejesus. He should never be allowed to roll those in anger ever. So yeah, if you are planning on getting into some 1/100th scale gaming, obviously these are set up for Flames of War, but let's face it, it's World War II. Therefore, the order of battle will be the same regardless of the game you're playing at that scale. So there's some other games about that you might want to give a tootle with as well, depending on your point of view. I do like the British though, or the Anzacs. It could be. They're all slouch cat wearing fellas there in that little pack. Although people keep telling me, shouldn't be that prevalent on the tabletop.
Oh, right.
Yes, they wore them in parades and stuff, but I don't know how accurate it is as far as that. But they certainly
How
are
you
very
tell from a
distinctive.
model's eye view, from a gamer's view, what you've got on the table. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah. So
Also, it's a game. Throw a bit of style in if you can.
Exactly. Yeah.
Otherwise, everybody looks like tiny green plastic men.
I like the idea of the stylings. Right. I think that's enough news for now. And it's time for the Indie of the Week. Okay, so this week's Indie of the Week is technically a revisit from a little while ago. And technically it's 4 Indies of the Week. And this is the reason we are revisiting it.
Right.
Because I'm like that. Can you guess what it is yet, Ben?
No.
Oh, you disappoint me, young Padawan. It is Gripping Beast, home of Saga, for example. And the reason we're here, like I say, is because it's 4. Because Calpe shut down. Gripping Beast bought Calpe.
Yes.
Ragnarok, Colin, who was original sculptor for Gripping Beast, started Ragnarok Miniatures, and then he went...
Did Saxon Miniatures as well, didn't he, before?
Did Saxon Miniatures, yes, which ended up with Warlord. But he ended up bringing Ragnarok to Gripping Beast, so he sculpts for them, and then they supply that. And also, as you can see, Front Rank, who we've also visited as an indie a long time ago, they retired and sold the range, and it came to Gripping Beast. And I don't know if people are aware.
So this is a PSA.
of how many ranges Gripping Beast now have under their umbrella. And I know at one point people were going, they've got Front Rank and Calpe. Won't that be sort of cannibalizing their own market? You go, no, because they own them both. And they're both very good Napoleonic ranges to mix and match. So we'll take a look at...
Before you kick in,
yes,
front Rank is what a lot of our Brazilian Imperial Guard are.
Yes. The Front Rank are gorgeous. And I'm so glad somebody's picked them up, because I bought at a Bring and Buy years ago a unit of British heavy dragoons that somebody was selling, but it was just the British figures. It wasn't the horses, and they were Front Rank miniatures. And because the way they're designed, they have the tack is on the miniature, not on the horse. So you have to get the relevant horses for the relevant figures. And it's like, I kept meaning, and I never got round to buying them. Yeah. I was like,
I genuinely thought you were going to say, I bought a unit of dragoons, but it was only the horses.
No, it was the other way around. It was just,
so it could have just been any old horse.
Yeah. That would have been slightly more bizarre. But we'll start with Gripping Beast itself. So they obviously do an awful lot, from your Ancients through to your Dark Age, as you can see down here. You go everywhere from the Hallmark successors. So if you fancy your post-Alexander fun, you can go in there. Also Punic Wars, Persians, all of that, through to your Dark Ages or your Romano-British. And it's a comprehensive range that they built up for years. These days, obviously, a lot of people come here will come specifically for things for Saga, but there's no reason to find yourself limited to only 40-odd models in an army, when you could, for example, go, I fancy playing Midgard, and I fancy doing that delightful fellow Arthur King and his friends, and throwing them up against, whoever you want, really. Let's face it, the Picts are a good target, always, I feel. So things like getting your hands on Pictish chariots or Pict hunters with their little tiny light crossbows. The delightful, where's my Pictish crossbow? There we go. Have him. Just a really weird little crossbow if you've ever seen it.
Almost like an instrument rather than
they were a simple weapon with just like a lever underneath. But yeah, so possibly not the greatest penetrating power, but I just love the idea of crossbow wielding Highland Scots.
The ancient version of concealed carry. Yeah.
What's under your tunic, sir?
My codpiece.
Before people correct me, I knew the Picts weren't Scots until they were. Don't bother telling me below, because I don't read those. So they have a really comprehensive range of figures for all of your mass battle historical games.
Yeah.
And if you happen to be looking for stuff for Saga, for example, then you can definitely do that as well. But getting your hands on, a range of figures for the likes of Midgard, where it's obviously very heroic based, it's quite nice because you can throw your various Pictish kings in there. I'm trying to remember. Was McAlpine the last, or was he the first Scot? I can't remember. The last Pict or the first Scot / Pictish one.
The way I used to look at the stuff from Gripping Beast when I first got into Saga was because I initially bought the plastic sets from Gripping Beast.
Yes.
Because they were way better than the other ones. From Wargames.
Factory.
Oh my God, those are awful.
Yep. Yes, they are.
Scrapped 2 boxes of those. 2 full boxes gone in the bin. Well, not in the bin. I'm not Justin. They're still in the shed. But but then what I'd do is I'd go and I'd find the elite and character models from the Gripping Beast range as a whole, because they were all the ones they did in metal. So especially for the Saxons, I went and got the guys with the Dane axes and my own versions of Godwin and Son and stuff like that to use as that's the exact set that I got down in the bottom left. Use them to kind of like supplement the plastic range effectively, which was always a good way of doing it. So yeah,
especially when you're rocking
the cheapest chips as well. So.
Yeah, especially when you're rocking an elite unit, you only need 4 of them, and I can't remember if you can make them off the plastic. I think plastic you can make Hearthguard, but they're going to be sword and board.
Yeah. And that was the thing as well, because you were trying to make elite units, that the metal versions always had slightly more dynamic poses than what you could achieve with the plastic sets, because you were trying to do it from like kit bashing point of view. So it was always a handy way of making your force look a little bit more badass than it already was. They did some really nice Viking berserkers and all sorts of things like that. The Ulfherde, or how do you say it? The
animal skin wearing lunatics.
With their todgers hanging out.
Yes.
And wolf skins over their backs, which was always good. So
there's part of the warband that me and Lloyd used in the Saga game we filmed that you will never see. Because I have that warband. Because an Estonian friend went, "You are absolutely balls at painting stuff to completion, aren't you, McCabe?" And sent me that painted.
Amazing.
Lavio. So it was like, it's nice. It's like, I can just add to this. I've never got around adding to it. But yeah.
They do some really interesting characters as well that you wouldn't necessarily think of. A lot of them taken from the likes of Studio Tomahawk's Saga book as well. So like Hereward the Wake and stuff, not a character that you would necessarily know from the period, but his guerrilla fighting in the swamps and stuff after the Norman conquest is pretty freaking badass.
Yeah, he was. Was he technically the last Anglo-Saxon king?
More or less.
Because it was after Harold got slapped down, he technically took over and kept going for a while.
Fighting in the swamps, trying to kill as many Normans as possible.
Which is all good. Yeah. If you need something for games scenario-wise, then this is obviously very handy, especially with the likes of Pillage coming soon. I
was going to say, which is very narratively focused as a game, isn't it? So... yeah,
I mean, the game is there in the title. It's not. It's not 2 armies slapping each other like 2 slabs of meat, just going blam 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 blam. It is about going in and raiding and spiriting away either people or things, as the meme says. That time, all the monks died and then spontaneously combusted. There were the Vikings helping to protect their cultural artifacts from the raging inferno. So, and that's how it happened at Lindisfarne. Can't tell me any different.
Yeah.
So obviously quite a lot of interesting figures, including ship's captain. Looks a bit rust-like to me, bit filth. But But you too can have your
livestock. Yeah, that's
your
really
livestock.
Cool. Yeah.
I know Lloyd is a big fan of sheeps, so I'm just saying, he really is.
He'd probably buy those camels as well, to be fair.
Yeah.
He'll freak out about those and then try and buy something else to go with them so he can justify having camels.
A friend from Australia, Beckus, God rest him, he used these kneeling camels for his Anzac force and bolt action as objective markers.
That's cool.
See little objectives who were just...
The camels run away with the bloody ammo.
Yeah, that type of thing. Just he had to chuck them down somewhere. Just amuse him for his North African stuff. But yeah, I mean, we could spend forever just going through what they have in the various sizes of stuff. Plastic figure wise, they've got a few. Obviously, there's the Saxon, Viking, and Dark Age that we talked about, but they did subsequently release Arabs.
The Arab stuff is really nice. It was one of the first I think they were one of the first companies that did the Arab stuff in plastic.
Oh, they were.
It was about the same time as Deus Vult came out, I think.
Yes.
And a lot of people were doing the Crusaders like Fireforge, but no one was really doing the Arab stuff. So when they came out, a lot of people dove in and grabbed these sets. So they're a little bit older now than some of the newer ones that are out there at the moment, but they're still really nice. And a very, very cheap option for getting stuck in as well. So.
If you're looking to stick a chunk of infantry down on the table, you can do far worse. The fact that it contains 40 is a really good sign because, you know, if you grab a couple of metal sort of commands, then these could be broken up into 12-man units or 16-man units quite happily. And then obviously the cav as well, light and heavy. So you can have your Turks, your Seljuks, or go full Gulam for your sort of...
They're still really
better,
nice. Yeah,
heavier, more expensive slaves. Because they were. Give me 20 of those slaves, they will become my elite fighters, please. Thank you. So yeah, the plastic range was excellent. Even did late Roman and Irish, as well as the generic Dark Age stuff. So your archers and cav and spear were all good. So they've been working on this for some time. Well, I like they've compiled some of the boxes into actual plastic. So, because I know when we started Saga at the club many moons ago, a few of us bought several of these boxes each, and then we sat down and we divvied up. So it was like, you know, everybody gets a sprue or two sprues of the heavily armored, and then broke up some of the smaller boxes for levy and warriors, that sort of thing. This is them just doing that in the factory, going, okay, well, if we gave you 2 of these sprues and 3 of these sprues, then you've now got a 4-point Saracen warband.
Doing the hard work for you.
Yeah. Well, it means you're not sitting, and because Saga is such a low model count game, if you do buy a box with 40, that's, you know, more than you need by a considerable amount. Although options, it does give you options. So there's a lot to be said for that. So anyway, gripping beast, delightful collection of ancients and Dark Age. And then, like I say, from there, you can then branch out into Napoleonics via the medium of front rank. And they have some absolutely gorgeous stuff. I think when we visit them, 17th century, the Montrose stuff is, okay. And the 40mm isn't as comprehensive a range, but the Napoleonic stuff is absolutely the dog's doodads. And we shall not be looking near the medieval at all. But look, civilians, nobody wants medieval. Don't ha at me.
Everybody wants medieval.
If you go in there with if you go in there with a Dremel and just remove that box, you can then sculpt a little accordion, green stuff.
Yes.
Just saying. Just in case you need to do that at any stage for any reason. But yeah, just having the likes of Front Rank and Calpe available from one place is superb, and I'm so glad that these ranges in particular didn't vanish. It's always a bit of a panic when somebody says they're retiring, because I don't think people realize just how few companies are actual companies and how many in our industry are cottage industry. They're one person sculpting and casting, or they're one person sculpting and sending them off to be cast. And the minute they hit a certain age, and a lot of them are getting up there these days, then eventually they go, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to retire. And some ranges, unfortunately, just aren't picked up and vanish forever.
To give you an idea of that kind of thing, just from a slightly different genre, but like the Oathsworn miniatures, like they do birds and badges. They make loads and loads of miniatures. They do all sorts of things. That's literally 2 of them doing that in a unit. Michael does all the sculpting and the casting, and then Joe does all the packing and the sending and all that kind of thing. And they are just constantly working all the time to try and get stuff out to people. So that gives you an idea of like what it's like scale wise for a lot of different companies out there.
Especially when you make a little passion project and it suddenly takes off.
Yeah.
And you go from 10 orders a week to, 60 or something like that,
Yeah, it's like the company that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it's longer than that. Who just does it when he comes home? I'll be home. I'll do some sculpting and send it all off.
I found those last night. I was going through a set of boxes beside me, and I went, "What's in this brown box?" and opened it, and it's just full of Native Americans, full of Indians for the planes.
Yeah.
So yes, but that, I mean, that's an extreme example, but it is a good example. Or even I've got a load of Legio Heroica crusade stuff, and unfortunately Giuseppe passed away several years ago, and his nephews were trying to run the business for a while, and then eventually went, because they were doing it on the side for their job, but really it was their uncle's passion and his hobby, and it just faded. Unfortunately, it got to the point where they just couldn't keep it up. So there's a range that's gone, and that was a superb range of 15s, absolutely beautiful. But,
so as you say, it's good that companies like Gripping Beast are getting involved and picking up the ranges, because if they've got the manufacturing shops to do it, there's no reason not to get them out there for people. So.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out that they do have several rule sets beyond Saga, for example. So Swordpoint is mass battle.
Swordpoint's their own, isn't it? I think
Swordpoint's their own. Big battle game. If you fancy actually putting huge armies on the table. For people who want to do more Battle of Hastings than, a small cattle raid by some hairy Scandinavians, then Swordpoint is the way to go. Ragnarok, almost forgot to talk about Ragnarok. Is the mix
That's
of...
not possible.
Well, not with you here. This is Colin's fantasy range. Although the Sons of Odin Vikings are just generic Vikings, but the real fun comes with all of the fantasy stuff. So they have a really good look to them as well, especially the Draugr.
They're all slightly Middle Earth adjacent.
They are.
Well, so
we covered these a while ago.
Yeah.
We talked about them in the news and all sorts of things. We did his trolls recently.
We did, that's what I remember.
Coming off the back of his, what are they, the Woden noses or something?
The Woses.
The Woses, sure, if you say so, matey boy. But those are Middle-earthy hillmen, is that right?
Use them as your army of the dead of Dunharrow, or if you wanted to. Yeah.
Not those, where are you? There we go. Goblins. Oh, Lord, the goblins.
In a variety of different styles as well, which is nice.
You've little robed culty goblins, and then you've got bare-nippled goblins running about.
The snagger.
Yes.
Yeah.
But these are very Tolkien-esque. These have that corrupted elf feel.
Yes.
Very sharp features, but not cartoonish.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a very grounded sense of fantasy for Ragnarok, which is, absolutely beautiful. And then when you get things like the dwarfs, both flavors of dwarf.
They're so nice.
Easy tiger. They have the Middle-earth feel, but distinctly fantasy at that, without being over the top. No horned helms, no wings. Just good old-fashioned dwarven engineering. And
the Dverga.
They're matey boyfriends. Hello. We're the emo versions.
We wear slightly sillier helmets.
Yes.
We're you, but more Black Parade.
Yes. We have Skull on shield.
Well, we know we're the bad guys.
We march under the banner of a rat anus. So yes, they have that. Jugular is their gladiatorial combat game. And they have some really nice gladiators as well. And
I've actually seen that demoed, sorry, by the way.
Yeah.
And it looks really, really fun. If you're looking for a slightly more beer and pretzel style gladiator game, it's definitely worth checking that one out. So.
Lurkio is another range. People who are fans of Mortimer Glorium will already know this. Meg. So Meg was written, I think, by Simon Hall, yes, and Richard Cook. Nick, I have no idea. Gak Roger, never seen that before. Ooh. Anyway, Mortimer Glorium is mass battle on a smaller scale. So they've got various sort of flavors. You can play Paco or Magna. So that you've got like small, half scale, double scale for your the amount of elements within your army. But Simon also sculpted Lurkio miniatures, which again have ended up here. Weirdly, they've also ended up at Plastic Soldier Company, some of them. So that the Seocast Plastic Soldier 15s are Lurkio. Some of them are Lurkio sculpts, but these are the Ancients and Renaissance ranges in the metals. So if you're looking for these,
very nice.
Simon doesn't produce Lurkio anymore. You can get them here. So if you fancy adding some lovely assassinated Persians, you can do that. The teeny tiny little 15mm men. Fire your bows. Fire. So yeah, Gripping Beast have over the past, I want to say 3 years, just grabbed ranges that were about to go away. And I, for one, I'm very glad they have done so. Obviously, Calpe and Front Rank being two of the most recent, which right off the bat gives them, I think, one of the most comprehensive ranges of Napoleonics at one website in existence. Because they were massive for years, and now they're all in one home. So there you go. That's my little quintuplet. Lurkio's in there as well.
I think it's pretty much everything.
Sextuplet.
Yeah.
Sextuplet of indies.
Get your bang for your buck this time.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah. So it doesn't matter whether you're fighting ancient battles or all the way through to the 19th century. There's plenty in there for everyone, along with a whole host of rule sets to use them with, including, for example. Right. I think it's time for some more news.
Even more news, bitches.
Okay, so we're back with some more news. All the news that's fit to show you, whether you want it or not. And the first big chunky thing comes courtesy of the delightful people at Antediluvian Miniatures, the longest miniature company name I ever have to type out.
Yes.
It just is. Put that on your bookmark bar, never have to type it out again. In December/January, they previewed these from Mr. Matthew Bickley, some extended models for their Wars of the Bruces. And now they are finally available for you to get in lovely metals. So if you are interested in some 28mm 13th/14th century, because it's what, 1290s was the first Scottish Wars of Independence through to sort of mid 1300s. You can do this. Obviously, these are later. So this would be the second war for the likes of these, because obviously they weren't born yet when this happened. But they have had them mounted for some time, and now you'll be able to get your hands on lovely foot versions, either forming some form of defensive line, or, as Benjamin rightly points out, you don't want a horse running about the rampart of a castle during a siege. So it's good to have them on their feet.
Yeah.
But these are a spectacular set of miniatures.
They're amazing.
I really like his Kniggets. They are gorgeous, especially that fellow with the massive two-handed sword about to cleave somebody in twain. I mean, obviously they are historically accurate medieval miniatures, but if you're after something for, I don't know, Bretonians, Oldhammer styley, then these are some
the
gorgeous
hefty
foot
weapons
knights.
definitely slot into that vein of sculpting and aesthetic.
Oh,
don't they? So,
100%. And there's a really nice dynamic posing. These are nailed on for skirmish games or for large based sort of footprint games where you've got a bit of room to play on the base. They're not all static marching forward, although I do like my static Romans, so shut up. But if you're after a bit of diverse, I'm going to have you action, then these are great for that. On top of the knights, they've also got some foot in case you need to have chaff to soak up the wounds, shall we say?
Yeah.
So a nice range of weaponry again, from things like your polearms. That spiked club is brutal deluxe. He looks like a lovely fellow. Also, no armor on him, so I suggest you kill him quickly. Unlike some of the others who at least are wearing chain or gambis, who might take a bit of poking before they go down. You want to make sure Mr. Spiko there does not absolutely lump the ever-living bejesus out of your head. I like to think
that he was part of an artillery team, so he was working on a catapult, and someone's charged him, and he's gone, right, I'm going to have you.
That's just his defensive weapon.
Yes.
I'm not an aggressor, you understand. It's just a proactive
all I do is
defense.
Pull the lever.
You will stay away from me. There's also some really nice bowmen as well.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
These are absolutely gorgeous. And I mean, as far as the Scottish Wars of Independence go, smashing, great, super. But, I mean, longbowmen, very handy to have for any sort of medieval period, especially into the 1300s, where there's a lot of conflicts going on, where England is reaching out and touching people from a distance. And the Bruce's Wars were probably the first major war that had the longbow as being a big feature, beyond the, bows are there to annoy your opponent or sort of slow them down, but they don't really have the range or penetration from a distance. This really sort of codified the longbow as being a machine gun of its day. The speed, accuracy, and penetration of the longbow really came to the fore here, and then was used for some considerable time after, and to massive effect all over the place.
Yeah, a great leveler. Yeah,
up to and including Second World War, where
you jump off a landing craft with one of them.
Well, not even that.
Yeah,
his namesake, Winnie was of the opinion that they should look at longbows for the Second World War, just because
of quiet.
For whatever reason, until somebody pointed out they didn't really have the was it the First World War? Didn't really have the amount of longbowmen that they required to do the job. People hadn't been training in it for quite some time. But yeah, it's strange how things go. It's like that weird one where somebody decided that pike would be a really good idea for the Confederacy in the American Civil War. Sometimes generals just go, you know what? I really like the idea of people marching in big squares. Yeah, but
or Canada, that bunch of men in a big square.
Yeah, but if you're after some really nice medieval figures, Antediluvian's range is absolutely corking. And you don't have to stick with the Scots. You can quite happily transpose these into France if you fancy doing some of the old 100 Years' War. These are the same,
very easily
same equipment and weaponry that you would get for that. And I mean, because the figures are Scots, they could fight on the French side, and then you keep the bowmen for the English side. They had that old alliance after all, and they can flip back and forth between them. So
definitely go and do your research on the Black Douglas, who's the other guy in that set with the Bruce, because he is a freaking badass.
Anybody who's seen Game of Thrones will be aware of the Blackfish. It's not a million miles away. When Mr. RR decided that he needed somebody. I mean, he cherry picked most of British history anyway, and
He did,
continental Europe for a large chunk of his plot lines and set pieces. And the Black Douglas and the Black Voucher, I mean, two
Just
peas
to
in
let
a
you know,
pod.
he had his heart carved out when he died in Africa, I think it was, when he was fighting over there, and he had his companions take it all the way back to Blighty for him. So,
I mean, makes sense. Why would you not?
He's such a cool badass. Oh my god, some of the stuff he did in Sieges, like nighttime raids and all sorts of things like that, he is so cool.
He's
anyway,
got a fan anyway.
fanboy moment over.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Why not fanboy of the Black Douglas? If you are interested, they obviously match very well with Claymore miniatures, Claymore castings, rather. Sorry, their medieval range,
They're
a
a good
lot of them
slot.
sculpted by
Yeah.
Mr. Bickley as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, worth checking out if you fancy some of that, and if you fancy something a bit more fantastical, Ben.
Yeah. So Osprey Games are now in the process of getting their fantastic new game from McCullough out into the world. So Hairfoot Jousting is available for you to snap up from those guys over at Osprey. But North Star, as is normally the case, have got involved and are sculpting all of the wonderful metal miniatures to slot into your games for you to use. And you might notice something slightly different with the first miniatures that we're showing off here, because it was revealed this week in a nice little sort of tease that if you look in your Hairfoot Jousting book and then you flip it round, as Jerry will now demonstrate, because he has it, there is actually rules at the back for playing with the Wartnose goblins, so you can get stuck in and you can start playing your games not as halflings, because who wants to play as those jolly bastards? You can actually play as the conniving and sneaky goblins instead, on their variety of different steeds. And the actual rules themselves come with a bunch of new pitches, and from what we could tell anyway, Jerry, it seems like a lot of stuff is just reworded for the most part, it seems. But yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, so you can get a look at it there.
You
and there's a few
can have
special
to go
rules
to
and all
the
sorts of things in
Twitchy
there
bit.
too. If you did and have some fun with them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Hairfoot and the Wartnoses is the stats are compatible. The mechanics for winning the games are compatible. So halflings, if they get 10 applauses, 10 cheers, then they get like a reroll token. If the goblins get 10 jeers, they get it as well. And mechanically, the goblins' mounts have got certain abilities that mimic the Hairfoot's abilities as well, but they've just got a different name behind them. So it's a different presentation on the two sports, shall we say, the two teams. The most interesting thing is obviously the pitches, because the game itself is relatively simple. It's a touch of the Gaslands in that you've got templates, but
to move around and stuff.
But you roll for your templates. And that's the main thing about these. So certain, like a fluffy sheep, for example, is bouncy. So if it hits something without much pace, it will just go a bounce off because it's all fluffy. And then, I think the toad or frog is the same. But then when you come to roll, some of them will go, well, because you're so bouncy, if you've got this template, you have the choice to swap it for another template. Because once a template goes down, you must make your full move. And if that means you impact friends or foes, then you will sort of lose endurance and that sort of thing. So
so they've done a section of sculpts for both sides of this essentially now. So you get a bunch of different goblins all mounted on various creatures. So you got the likes of the horn toad, the horn frog, I think they call it in this. There's like a centipede and a rat and a mole rat and a cockroach and all that kind of thing.
Naked mole rat.
A naked mole rat.
All pink and
and you can get the miniatures either separately or as the bundles, as you can see here. And obviously they're also doing the halfling side of things as well. So if you want to be slightly cuter in the miniatures that you paint, then you've got those options.
Stout.
Yeah. And again, comes with a nice little bundle of stuff in metal for you to snap up and use in your games. So nice to see that McCullough basically has just been given free rein to do something a little bit different, a little bit weird. I mean, because he's been doing Silver Bayonet and the Grave games for a while now, which I suppose you could say are slightly more serious because they're big campaign endeavors and all that kind of thing. So it's nice to have something a little bit sort of out there from him and the folks at Osprey. And as we were saying, the rules are available for you to go and snap up right now. And you can also get your hands on all of the different goblins and halflings from North Star and set up some fun pitches and have a bit of a jolly on the weekend, maybe. So,
good. I mean, there'll be a little unbooking coming where I go through it, but it's an interesting little game, and it will expand. It's, as Joe says, it's written for 1v1, but you could potentially push it up to, a 6-way melee, and then there are little rules amendments if you want the game to go faster or slower.
Sounds good.
So you can change things to sort of turn limit, and instead of removing a model when it's lost its endurance, you just mark out how many strikes that they make against other players. So if you're playing a 6-game melee, you don't have somebody get knocked out on turn 2 and then just sitting there watching everybody else have fun. You just keep playing to the end and then work out who's got the biggest score. Or if you're playing the 1v1, then there are mechanics in there that sort of rubber band. So like I was saying, jeers and cheers will get you rerolls. I think it's 10. But if at the start of a turn you've got less models on the board or in the pitch than your opponent, then you automatically start with 4 cheers. Right. So you've got a little push towards getting in there and then slapping somebody to get that bonus reroll that might help you out. So there's a lot of fun stuff. It is very cutesy. There is a little campaign mechanic as well if you want to play leagues. I would suggest doing like we used to do with our old Blood Bowl league back in the day, where we had 2 running simultaneously. And then we played cup tournaments where you got drawn League 1 against League 2. Or the Carlsberg Special and Tenant Super, as they called those leagues. So you could have your Goblin games and you could have your Hairfoot games, and then you could do inter-pitch cup competitions where you just get round robin and drawn against each other for a bit of a laugh.
Love that.
But good clean family fun.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see that played, I think. Yeah. They were doing some really nice demos of it at Salute, and everyone seemed to be enjoying it. So of all age ranges as well.
There were people going a bit Bernie, where they had chicken, animal leg sort of thing going on. They were jousting each other. It was very peculiar.
It was an interesting day for the marketing team, I think.
Yeah. That's why they had to. That's why Benji had to go. He looked at that and thought, I can't run around all day dressed like a chicken.
Yeah,
my legs will never allow it. Anyway, so we have a final bit of fantasy news coming courtesy of Wyrd.
Yeah, so Wyrd Games announced over the last couple of days that they are moving towards creating a new edition of Malifaux. So they're going to be moving towards the 4th edition of the game. 4th edition's been around for a couple of years. I think it was 2021 was the start of the newest edition of the game, or the current one anyway, I suppose.
Yes.
And they kind of took it in an interesting direction, tried to play around with the narrative a little bit more. They always moved the story forward, which is always nice to see in a game. But they did some interesting things with the way that you could have characters moving between gangs, factions effectively. And essentially the mechanics were still very much the same, but there was a lot of additional complication built into the rules. And it meant that, and they were very open about this when they were describing the move to 4th, that a casual game of Malifaux could take somewhere between 3 and 4 hours for you to play, which is a lot for a skirmish game. And so what they're trying to do with 4th edition is not dumb it down, but simplify and kind of like clean up the game as they move into a new edition of it, and make it so that games, a skirmish game takes around 2 hours to play, which is a lot more palatable for a lot of people. The core of Malifaux isn't really changing. It's still a game which is driven by the card decks that you have. There's a little bit of the bluffing mechanics still in there as well. So you're kind of using those cards, those fate decks, to cheat fate, the way that the cards come up for you, and you'll still be diving deep into the mechanics of how individual characters work and their combinations between multiple versions of a faction and all that kind of thing. And they're still keeping a lot of what makes Malifaux, but what they're going to be doing is moving the story forward again. and then sort of taking a lot of stuff that they did with third and just kind of like reduxing it. So a couple of things they've talked about is that a number of models will be leaving the range. So they'll be sort of being put out to pasture, as it were. A lot of them were from second edition anyway. So it makes sense that they kind of moved on. There will still be proxies. They've already put out a list of all that online. So you can go and find that if you want to. So you could still use the miniatures if you still have them in your collection. But they're going to essentially look at the way that they build factions and that kind of thing and simplify a lot of that going forward. There's not going to be a lot of that kind of one character can work for two factions anymore. They have to, as they say in their kind of like example, choose a side, which makes sense with the way that they're taking the story and the narrative going forward.
Get off that fence.
So it'll be very easy for you to be like, right, so this is just 10 Thunders or this is, just the guild or something. It'll be a nice, easy way for people to dive in. When it comes to the miniatures themselves, they'd have sort to like talk about what they're going to be doing in terms of plans for getting people into the game as well. So one of the things they did mention is that going to be a brand new starter set is going to be coming out, which is newcomer friendly. So it will follow the path of what they've been doing with sets up until now. So like the last third, I suppose, of third edition, in that there'll be pre-assembled plastic miniatures in the sets. So you won't have to do any of the assembly in order to get them to the tabletop. And within that set, there you go. And they're lovely. They're really nice little pre-assembled plastic miniatures that they've been working on so far. And you'll get the 2 fate decks. You'll get everything else you need to play the game just in that one set alongside the core rules. When it comes to the rule books as well, there will always be a core rule set that will be available in printed form. And that will be available in stores. It'll be available in the starter sets. Pick it up however you like. Use it with all the on miniatures you've got in your collection, however you want to go about it. And that will give you the basics of how to start playing the game. But then what they're also going to do is they're going to supply a set of comprehensive rules online as part of a digital sort of living rule book almost, which will be constantly updated and it'll have all the extra things you need to learn to get into the game as part of that. But they're also going to offer that as a print-on-demand thing as well if you want to pick it up and have it as a physical object in your gaming collection if you prefer. But essentially they're looking at it from a viewpoint of 4th edition being their way to kind of reset the clock almost and be like, right, we're going to make this as approachable for new people as possible because we know our game is good, we know our world is awesome, but it's a little bit dense to get into. Here's a way for you to just get started in it, which I think is a really nice way of doing that. A lot of people would probably agree that 3rd edition has potentially become a little bit bloated and hard to grok, as it were. So I think this will be a welcome update for a lot of people getting stuck into Malifaux for the first time. So
there's a lot going on with it. We can't really do it justice. So what we're going to do is tell you to go and see Jeff.
Yes. Hefe.
Jeff is a huge Malifaux fan.
Really is.
And he does great little videos over on the YouTubes with Defective Dice. Thoroughly nice bloke, despite me constantly referring to him as Dee like Dexter's sister. I will say Malifaux reached out to, they have in the past reached out to Jeff and a few others on a semi-regular basis when it comes to new releases and that sort of thing and community engagement. Danger Planet is another VidTube video thing that I'm not aware of, but at the start of this video, he mentions they have actually done a video about the models that are being removed and how they're going to be proxied and how that's going to work. So you can go there and see that. But this video will tell you all about the keyword changes, which is interesting. And he's a big fan of lore.
Very much is.
So he's done some really great lore videos, and he also got some images sent to him by Wyrd. So things like Cornelius Bass is going to be shifting factions. And this was one of the examples they sent. And in the video, he mentions that normally you would see a couple of paragraphs of blurb about the character, whereas here it's substantially more. So he's got essentially 3 pages, a couple of which show off his stat cards, and then the other page and a half is just background. So there's going to be a lot more lore into it. But this is a great video for people who are already Malifaux players who want to know how the keywords are going to change. And I would say if you are a new player, maybe you don't need to look at this video as far as what the keyword changes and stuff are going to be, because you're not going to see the previous edition. but his channel has got some absolutely fantastic lore about the game. So if you're curious as to exactly what is going on with the world of Malifaux, the factions in it, and that sort of thing, he does some really concise little videos about the background for various factions within the world. So it's
definitely be a good way for you to work out which faction you're going to start playing. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And I will just say, I've not checked to see if he's been removed. If he has, firebomb, weird. But there is a character called Lucas McCabe. So hopefully he will still be there.
We'll have to wait and see.
That little group of witches is there for me to someday throw to a friend across the table, Paul. And then I'm just going to run McCabe over and absolutely whip the shit out of him. So Lucas McCabe is rocking a bullwhip, which is all good and hood. So yes, it is a game I want to get more into. We have
it's really fun. I played it in second.
Really,
it was
really
fantastic.
big Malifaux fans in Northern Ireland, a couple of which, like Bob, is massively keen on it. He came down, ran a whole day's worth of Malifaux gaming up at the OTT club one Saturday. So brought down a rake of friends and set us up and went, here's how you play, and ran us through. So I'm just going to wait for Bob to get 4th edition, learn the rules, and then come down and teach me.
There we go.
So
solid.
Maybe I'll ask him if he wants to do it on camera.
There you go. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob, if you're watching this, do you want to do that on camera? Right. I think that's enough news for now.
Uh-huh.
And it's time to push on and take a look at a couple of Kickstarters. Okay, then our first Kickstarter is back to World War II, Ben.
It is. Yes.
But RPG-esque.
Yeah, so Firelock Games are back on Kickstarter with a couple of supplements and expansions to their role-playing game, War Stories. So War Stories has been around for a few years now. It is a role-playing game where you take on the role of soldiers during World War II. The initial book covered Normandy and the sort of weeks, months after that, as part of its core rules and also some of its supplements as well. It's all driven by the Year Zero engine, which a lot of people will be familiar with from Free League's games, used for Tales from the Loop and a lot of other games like that. But Firelock took it, their designers, and kind of like reworked it and tweaked it so it definitely fits the feel of World War II. We've played a couple of games of it on camera. It is no nonsense. It is dangerous, as you would imagine World War II to be. But it definitely dives into that kind of human heroism of the period and the individuals that you would get to see fighting on the battlefield. And not necessarily, and in the back alleys as well, I suppose, as well. Because you don't necessarily have to fill in the role of soldiers in this game. You could also take on the role of civilians, so members of the resistance and that kind of stuff, fighting for, in the example from the original book, France and stuff like that. So you could have them on your side, which is really cool. One of the nice things about Tales from the Loop and that kind of Year Zero engine thing is that kind of whole push mechanic element. And they've got that in here as well. So you can always try again with a roll, but then things might go badly. There's that fail forward element to War Stories as well. So it's definitely pushing that kind of narrative of like, guts and glory, pushing as hard as you can to take down the Axis and all that kind of stuff through a variety of different scenarios and things like that.
My advice is don't have a Jousting with you.
Yeah, don't have a Jousting.
He was our NCO and he got us banjaxed.
He really did. Yeah. Did we cut the wires? We'll never know.
We'll never know. Did we cut our NCO's throat? Who could say?
Did I run into a burning building to save somebody? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it a good idea? Probably not.
The interesting thing about the War Stories setup is Year Zero can be brutal.
It really can.
And war, as we know, is hell. Yep. And unlike other RPGs where you have sort of, hit points and, you take a couple of combat shotguns to the face and then shrug it off and march on. In this, if somebody gets injured and they have to be rotated out of the platoon for medical help, they may not come back for weeks/months, depending on the injury.
Exactly.
But you always have the underlying idea that you're never playing a single character.
You're a team.
You're a team and you're part of a larger platoon, and you can cycle characters in and out depending on the mission in question. So if you need a demo expert to go forward and blow up a bridge, then maybe that random background NPC, like in Band of Brothers, all of a sudden somebody will come forward, and then, as a group of players, you can give them a name, flesh them out, roll their stats, but you only do it when you need them.
Yeah, and rotate the role playing between people as well. So if somebody else wants to play the big heavy machine gun guy, wants to play Ox or something, you can do that and go down that route.
Which is a more interesting way of getting a feel for a group of people. You can, over time, you can flesh them out beyond their initial sort of background character status.
Yeah. The other thing that's really nice about it is that Firelock always take the path of historical accuracy.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the detail that they've worked into the game is based on the actual operations and how they took place and all that kind of thing. And a lot of the scenarios that you dive into are actually based on things like Market Garden and all that kind of thing. So you'll be able to follow things through. And it's very good for storytellers, GMs, because you can use a lot of resources in order to bring that to life. You can use the aerial photographs, you can use pictures from the time and all that kind of thing to inform how you play out those scenarios on the tabletop. When it comes to the new campaign that they're running here, there are options in here for you to dive in and get the original core books and stuff like that if you want to as well, if you're just looking at this for the first time. But the primary focus of this is the Pacific book. So that is a new supplement that throws in a brand new set of mechanics. So it'll obviously cover all the different weaponry and the enemies that you might be facing if you were diving into that theatre of war. But it also has a 6-part campaign built into it following the Guadalcanal as well. So you'll be able to dive into that campaign and play that through from beginning to end, which will be really interesting to see how that goes. As with the initial book, there will also be a set of pre-gen characters that you'll be able to dive in and start playing the game with if you like. You'll see some of the artwork for those characters here as well. But because Firelock are also a miniatures company, and they also design some wonderful figures for their games like Blood and Plunder and stuff, they have also started to work on some characters that you can pick up and get painted. So if you like some of the iconic characters from the artwork, you can bring them to life on the tabletop and start playing games as them. And obviously they're handy for tactical map play if you want to go down that route. The majority of what you do in war stories isn't big battles. It's small engagements which would be the case in the majority of the time when you've got a small team going to do X or Y. So it's always nearly focused on a smaller part of a larger conflict going on. So for example, if you were doing Bridge Too Far or something like that, it would be a bunch of guys being sent to do, take a particular section of the city whilst everything else is going on around them. So you're not going to be sort of dragged into the larger conflict necessarily, but what you do has an impact on what's going on in the larger. I mean,
Band of Brothers or what was the Pacific one called? Was it just the Pacific?
Yeah.
Shocking. Both of those give a really good idea of how to run.
Very much so.
World War II RPGs.
Character-focused, story-driven.
Because while they were part of much larger actions, it focused on a very small, focused group of people and what they were doing within that, whether it happened to be, a massive assault or a individual company or platoon being sent off to do one very specific thing, like extracting people back over the river at night. Things, all of these little intricate pieces that occur during war. It's a nice way of doing it as well. So it's a fascinating RPG system to play.
I think one of the driving forces behind why I was so interested in it when it came out was the fact that it was using a narrative system, a narrative set of mechanics from the Year Zero engine, but also a role-playing game not motivated by loot and glory and all that kind of thing. It's a role-playing game where you're actually taking on the role of people who probably could have existed in real life. And so you're playing out scenarios that, not too long ago, people were doing on the continent or on the islands and things. And so you have to really think about that from a viewpoint of how you approach it as a game. And if you're someone who really loves their role play and their actual narrative storytelling elements, it's a very, very good system for doing that. But also pretty cool as well if you like your Hollywood movies. So very good on that front at the same time. you can still fire a rifle at someone and be a badass. So.
True. Or fire a rifle at somebody when you're attempting to sneak by, miss, and then get us all killed, Justin.
Yeah.
Whatever's easiest. I mean, Either way.
I'm going to throw a grenade. Okay.
Please,
cover's blown then.
Now I'm sad. 28 days left on it, already funded. If you fancy exploring some World War II RPG goodness. Next up, we have
something very different.
Something incredibly different. The delightful Space Gits.
Space Gits.
What happens when all the orcs are off fighting a war? What do the Gits at home get up to? What do the orc chefs, the orc postmen, and everything else do? Well, they get drunk and then kick off in the streets because, fish bite hooks, orcs like to smash. So
it's like Britain.
it is very much like that in the 1980s Judge Dredd meets football hooligans kind of way. It's a game of dexterity. A very, very simple. As you can see, a core mechanic is not rock, paper, scissors. It's pinch, shove,
punch, isn't it? I think
punch.
Yeah.
So when you are digging up that chicken, you may want to wander around the place. It is a shockingly simple little game. Could be a great introductory game for kids. It is dexterity based, so every time you are playing, you are a group of orcs with a boss, and your orcs have to move around and pick up loot. Loot in this case is bottle caps, and the whole idea behind it, because it is campaign based, is your little Norks will go out and attempt to get their hands on as many caps as possible without getting absolutely cramped before the police arrive. And as you can see there, the law is coming. I would like to point out that he does have a rubber chicken stapled to his shoulder pad. So the Planet Crunch have sodded off en masse as a big war fleet into the Vlarg system, and you are left behind to just have fun while they're gone until somebody stops your fun. There are some fascinating mechanics. First up, when you move by the medium of rolling some die on the table, and then you must move the full distance towards those dice. So it doesn't matter if you pick any order, but you may find yourself bouncing back and forward like a rubber ball between.
You're drunk after all.
So, 100%. So there's the very simple system of roll dice, move that number of inches towards that dice, and then move towards the next die and the next die and so on and so forth. But the order in which you do them is completely up to you. So you can zigzag around the place trying to find the best direction to get to. And then at the end of every turn, you add a dice behind the model's base into these ridiculous dice towers. However, when you're fighting with other orcs, if you take damage, these dice also get added to it. So they are both a measure of your drunkenness and a measure of the amount of head smacking you've had and whether or not you're going to be upright at the end of it. Yeah. When you move, you have to move the dice tower and the miniature as one.
At the same time.
At the same time. Yeah. And if they tumble over, then don't worry, you've fallen over. And another orc can come along and get you back on your feet by giving you a kick. Or if they're not one of your friends, they can come over and give you a kick. It's entirely up to the orc in question, I feel. When you get into playing, you are using the pinch, shove, punch mechanic, which means you can pinch a bottle cap, pinch one of the loot tokens off another orc, or you can give them a punch to the face or shove them out of the way to move them around. So the campaign itself is for the rulebook for Space Gits. But Mike was talking to Cromlech. I was going, I fancy doing this. Is it okay if I use some of your miniatures? They went, yes, 100%. Use some of our miniatures. Fantastic. Do you want us to sculpt some things for you specifically for the Spacey Gits? And he went, okay. So the rules themselves, obviously have got a campaign system behind them. The miniatures are Cromlech based, which means you can already go out and get them if you want. But there are a couple of chunky bits of terrain, and that dread-like officer coming here.
He's
So
exclusive to the
yes, he is
campaign,
exclusive.
yeah.
So if you want some big, hefty pieces of sort of junkyard terrain or a orc porta potty, if you need that
Teleporter
sort of thing,
potty.
yes, it's it drops it off somewhere else, hopefully into a volcano where it's just turned to ash without any major issues. More likely just randomly above somebody's head, I would imagine.
On top of a goblin somewhere.
On top of a goblin somewhere, then you can do that. Cromlech have done a ton of bits and pieces over the years for the Norks.
They have so many orcs.
Yeah, and they have that ridiculous 80s football hooligan feel that we all grew up loving. It has that very 2000 AD feel to it. But it's just a fun little game of punching each other while attempting to lay your hands on as much loot as possible. And loot is used to recruit new members if they happen to get nicked by the fuzz, by Officer Crunk there, or if they didn't get up after they've been kicked a few times. It's time to replace that orc with a new orc. So they can be used for that, or they can be used to upgrade your little orcs for when they decide to go rocking around the place, whether it's thumping people or shooting them in the face. It's entirely up to you. Because, I mean, it's all fun and games when you just start the night happy drunk, but eventually somebody will get punched once too often or shoved over, and then it'll all kick off.
Yeah.
So, they've put together little roving bands of specific group types, but really you can come up with whatever you want yourself. Things like the chefs are particularly fun. That's probably one of my favorite. Just a bunch of really annoyed. I mean, anytime anybody sees any chef on TV, they're always borderline orcish anyway. They're all kicking off massively. Just paint Gordon Ramsay green.
Yeah, oh god, yeah, you need a Gordon Ramsay, yeah.
And then just push him out into the street and he'll do exactly the same as this. Yeah. It's a really fun and quick game.
Yeah.
With the dexterity added to it as well, just to change things up. Because there's
I was going to say that it's on a half-hour timer, isn't it?
Yes.
Like you actually set a timer, and that's how long you've got to play the game. So you can't just sit around very carefully moving your models as slowly as possible with the dice tower.
That wouldn't be okay.
You have to be quick. Yeah.
Get in, get the stuff, get out.
Add in a take a shot every time the dice tower falls over.
Yes.
They even specifically say this could easily be a drinking game. So
probably
we don't advise alcohol consuming, but
I do. But if you are using this as a fun, dexterous game that you can play with the kids, probably leave the drinking bit out of that.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Or substitute their shots for cough syrup. They'll do the same thing, the kid. It's all fine. Don't worry about that.
At least you're going to be tired out and you're going to sleep tonight.
Yes. You can see here the map of Grunge. It has just such a ridiculous naming convention. It's, it is that Drock, the 2000 AD meets, first edition, Here We Go and Warg, 40k names. They're just all ridiculous. Sitting on this world as they punch and kick their way to happiness. There's the teleporter loo. And the big chunky pieces of resin that Cromlech have done are really nice. Yeah. If you happen to need some random bits of scatter for the middle of your orky streets as you're punching people.
I would also recommend going and have a look at either the stuff from Fugu or the stuff from Ramshackle, because you can make some really nice setups using their terrain and all their bits and pieces.
That's generally a good way of doing it. Yeah. Ramshackle is it in that box there? Ramshackle's a good one for two reasons. One is they have some really nice bits and pieces of kit bashing stuff. Mm-hmm. But two, it is. I'll just pause here for me to open this. These are Orky arms.
There you go.
But the actual sprue that they come on is actually just, you can cut it off and glue it to a base, and now you've got a barricade made up of scrap. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the wasted bit of chunky resin that you would normally get becomes additional terrain for your board. So if you are doing the kit bashy route, Ramshackle's an absolutely fantastic shout. But yeah, you can get just the book for Space Gits, or you can pick up any of the bits and pieces in there you want. If you're after the Officer Crunk and just Officer Crunks, then, just pledge a pound or $1.
I will also remind folks that Module Orca exists, and that's a stunning range of orcs that are very, very characterful. So,
yes.
I mean, you're not going to run out of orc models.
Yeah.
But there's plenty out there for you to get your hands on and have some fun with. Artel, they do amazing ones as well.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's if you don't already have orcs in your collection, there's a ton of people out there. You can get them off. If you do have orcs in your collection and you just want a different type of skirmish gang game, I mean, there's a lot out there, and they all come down to you've got so many inches of movement, and then you roll d6 to fire or punch or whatever it is. This just goes, so many d6 of movement, roll them on the table, and now move towards them in a haphazard, staggering drunken orc manner, and then be lucky, pick something up, and don't run into another orc, or you'll get toileted.
And all without having to pay any money to Games Workshop. So.
Always a winner, I feel. It's already massively funded.
Oh, yeah.
And there are 22 days to go on it. If you fancy some Space Gits fun, you can check out that interview I did with Mike, where we talk about it in a bit more detail. And the PDF quick start rules are available to download. Right. It's only 4 pages.
Yeah.
So
watch the trailer, by the way. The trailer is hilarious. You didn't have it with the music on, but it is.
I did, but you just can't hear that.
Oh, right. Okay.
Right. Deaf. Right. Which is why you often see me mute it, because it just blows my ears off. But yes, the game's an awful lot of fun. I think it's a cracking little way of getting kids to start playing miniature games where you don't have to start giving them weird stuff like dice mechanics. If they can play rock, paper, scissors, then they can play shove, brawl, pinch, whatever it is. But yeah, check that one out and have some fun with your orky gets in space. Right. I think that wraps us up for another week. Mm-hmm. We shall away and return next Friday. Same bat time, same bat channel. But if you want to come visit us over at OnTableTop.com on Sunday, we'll have our Cultists XLBS, where we'll be bringing in a Shay and going, Shay, have you seen? And then naming random TV shows they won't have seen.
You will be impressed by him this week.
Ooh.
I think he's done a hobby.
Foreshadowings. Yeah. We'll also be taking a look at people's hobby from the community as well. Yes. So that's always good fun to see what people have been up to. Obviously,
arguably the more important people.
Spring Clean Challenge is in full flow. So if you want to get involved with that, you can come over and drop a project into the system, or check out what people have been doing for the Spring Clean Challenge. Dust off some old miniatures, finish them for once in your life. Come on, McCabe. Seriously. Anyway, enough of that. We'll see you again next week. Until then, have a great week of gaming. Bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.